while I was there.
Okay. And did you go home after you left the scene, or did you have to go back to the station?
I went back to the station.
And by the time you got back to the station, that was a few minutes later, 5 minutes later?
Probably, yes.
Had it started to rain by then, or had it started to pour by then?
Yeah, I think it was raining. On my way back to the station, I believe it was raining.
And while you were, after you had pronounced Mr. Lloyd dead, I think you had said that Detective Arrighi was taking photographs?
Yes, I believe he was.
And tell us what you recall of Detective Arrighi doing as he was taking photographs.
He was really just worried about the rain causing a problem with evidence, so he was taking pictures of those shells, and then he decided to pick them up. And
You were still there?
I was there when he picked those up, yes.
So in that photograph, exhibit 12, I think it is. Presumably that's Detective Arrighi that's taking that photograph?
I do not know where it came from.
Okay. But you're still there, and you and firefighter Langell are documenting the scene, as you say?
Yes.
And Officer Grimm, or an officer that might be Officer Grimm, is there?
Yes, if that's who he is. Yeah.
And by the time that this photograph was taken, do you recall whether or not Detective Arrighi or Captain Dorenzo had collected the casings?
I do not know if it was before or after this photo.
Would it be fair to say that the casings were collected shortly after you pronounced Mr. Lloyd dead?
Yes.
That's your recollection?
Yeah, probably within 10 minutes or so, I would say, maybe.
And you were still down there at that time?
Yes, still.
You saw that?
I saw...
The casings being collected?
Yes, I think he was putting them in brown paper bags, I believe.
That's all, thank you.
Any redirect? Just briefly, sir, you referred a couple of times to a patient care report, is that right?
Yes.
And that details information about a particular call.
Yes.
But more specifically, not the nature of the call, but also any patient that you dealt with.
Yes.
Okay. Would that include crew members or people who have responded?
It sometimes does put everybody there.
Your Honor, may I approach?
May.
You were just asking questions about Mr. Langford.
May I see that?
Oh, I beg your pardon. The documentation that Mr. Rankin was asking you about, what is that call? A few minutes ago when he was asking about the crew members.
Oh, he showed me the National Fire Incident Report that we make, that comes on every call.
Okay.
But that's not the patient care report. That's
Okay.
a different piece of information.
And in fairness, what he was asking you, that additional name that you said was on the engine should have been on that form. Is that
Sure.
right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just going to show you this document and ask you just to read it, this portion up here to yourself. Does that indicate up here, does that indicate who was actually present at the scene or who had arrived at the scene?
So I guess the other...
Well, I guess the question is, does that refresh your recollection?
Does that refresh your memory?
I did not have much interaction with the engine guys there,
Okay.
so I do not know if that's accurate or not.
Okay.
I did not write that.
Who prepared this report?
Josh Langell.
Okay, and at whose direction was the information with regard to the patient's information? Who was giving him that information?
I gave him that information.
Okay. everything, that other information was then entered by him, presumably, or somebody else?
Correct.
Not you. Okay. And with regard to, when you indicated, Mr. Rankin had asked you about the number of firefighters that you saw with your own eyes going near the body. How many was that?
Just myself.
Okay. So
The closest Josh Langell got was that picture that showed us standing together.
Okay. And leaving, was it set up?
Oh, yes.
Was it stationed by anybody?
Yes, a police officer was there.
Okay.
I do not know who.
And what was, you don't remember which police officer?
No, I do not.
What was the police officer doing?
He was logging everybody's name and time they entered and exited the scene.
Okay. And that would include yourself?
Yes.
Now, in terms of the ground, when you had gone over to the body, did you make observations of the ground surrounding where the body was lying on?
It was like dirt and rocks. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, if you could just describe.
It was just dirt and rocks, you know.
Could you describe it in terms of its looseness or its compactness?
I would say that it was fairly firm. I don't know.
Did you observe yourself making any, as you walked across the ground around the body, making any footprints?
No, I didn't observe that.
And again, you were in the area essentially above, near the head or above that area?
Correct.
Okay. And the salvage cover that you referred to, what color is that?
Red.
Okay, thank you, sir. Nothing further.
You may step down.
Thank you.
And could I see counsel for a second? Your Honor, I would call Blair Sullivan, please. Please remain standing, face the clerk, and raise your right hand.
Sir, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Have a seat, sir.
Good morning, sir. Would you state your full name, please?
Good morning. My name is Charles Blair Sutherland,
And could you spell your last name?
Sutherland.
And where do you work, sir?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police at the General Headquarters building in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay, and what position do you hold with the state police?
The Director of Telecommunications for the agency.
Okay, and what responsibilities do you have as Director of Communications?
As Director of Communications, there are 2 units who report to me, the Dispatch Services Unit and the Radio Technical Services Unit. In that capacity, we ensure that wireless 911 calls are answered. We operate several regional communication centers. We operate troop headquarter dispatch centers, and we also administer and manage the Commonwealth's 800 megahertz public safety radio network.
Okay. And do you cover the area of North Attleboro in terms of 911 cell coverage?
Yes, sir. We do.
Okay. Could you explain how is that covered when a 911 call is made by a cell phone, say in an area such as North Attleboro?
Sure. When a 911 call is made from many locations around the state, the call is received by a cell tower. When you dial 911 from your cellular phone, that call is then routed through a mobile switching network to the Massachusetts 911 network. When it gets to the Massachusetts 911 network, the call is sent to the appropriate public safety answering point, and in the case of North Attleboro, that call would come to the Framingham 911 Communications Center.
Okay. And are there persons assigned then to answer and respond to those calls?
There are trained state police dispatchers who are certified to answer 911 calls in the Commonwealth.
And is there certain equipment that is used to collect and maintain and record these calls?
There is. When a 911 call is received, it is recorded both from an audio perspective, so the voice recording is made of the entire 911 call, as well as the call is captured electronically. There's certain data that flows with a 911 call. That data is also captured and archived.
Okay. And were you requested to bring certain records relating to a certain call that was made on June 17th, 2013 at approximately 17:34?
Yes, sir, I was.
And 17:34, is that military time?
It is, sir.
And what is civilian time?
That's 5:04 p.m.
I'm sorry, 17:34 would be...
I'm sorry, 5:34 p.m.
Okay. And with regard, did such a record exist at that time?
A record did exist at that time.
Okay. Sir, I'm just showing you this 3-page document. Do you recognize it?
I do, sir.
Okay, and what is that?
This is a 911 call report, and this was the document that was associated with the call recording that the state police provided.
Okay. And do these records indicate they're created at the time a call comes in?
Yes, sir.
And are they created in the ordinary course of business?
They are created in the ordinary course of business, day in, day out, call in, call out.
Okay, made in good faith?
Yes, sir.
And then maintained by the state police?
The state police archive and maintain these records, yes, sir.
Okay, and this record was made prior to June 20th, 2013, is that right?
It was. This record was created on the day the call was made, and the record was archived as soon as the call was terminated. The call is framed up and archived at that time.
I'd offer this as the next exhibit.
No objection.
And mark it the next exhibit.
Thank you. May I use your letter? I'm just going to show you what has now been marked just to your left there on that screen. Exhibit 15. Can you see that all right?
I can, sir.
And what do you refer to this document? How do you refer to it?
We refer to this document as an ALI, A-L-I, call report.
Okay, and what does an ALI stand for?
ALI is Automatic Location Identification. It's a standard 911 industry term.
Okay. And just I'm going to direct your attention over here. It says in that black shaded area or gray shaded area, ALI. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then just below that, it refers to sequence numbers.
The sequence number refers to the fact that this is the first sequence of documentation in this particular call.
Okay. Now just above, right up here where it says Annie, can you tell us what is that?
I can tell you ANI, Annie, is the automatic number identification. That's the phone number that called 911.
And at that time, that reflects a number, is that true?
It does. That's a telephone number, and it's a cellular phone number, and we know that because it was routed through the cellular network.
Okay. And then next it refers to a certain duration of call?
Yes, sir. That's the total duration of the call, including the time the call gets entered into the system, even before it rings, right until the call is disconnected and the call has been closed out. The telephone call has been closed out.
Okay. And then the last thing on that row is a call reference number?
It's a reference number generated by the 911 system and is unique to each wireless 911 call.
Okay. And how many calls came in regarding this matter?
The matter that we were asked to look at, we received one wireless 911 call.
Okay. And any other land calls or anything of that nature?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And what about in terms of the time? When did that call come in? Is that reflected here?
It is. The call came in at the wireless phase 1 data at 17:34. That's 5:34 p.m. on June 17th.
Okay. And when you said wireless phase, is that referenced here by certain letters?
It is. WPH1 stands for wireless phase 1.
Okay. And what does that indicate? What does that mean?
Wireless phase 1 is the data that flows with a wireless 911 call. Phase 1 data provides information relative to the cell tower where this call was first received.
Does that reflect, does this document reflect where that cell tower is located?
It does, sir. Further down the page, after you, underneath where it says VZW, the address of that cell tower is 570 Landry, I believe it's Street, in North Attleboro.
Okay. And does it give a general sector or location within the town or city of North Attleboro?
It does. It says southeast sector, and that southeast sector refers to the cellular antenna panel where the call was received. Most, if you look at a cell tower and you see panel antennas, flat panels, those are cellular antennas. They receive the cellular traffic. In this particular case, the call was received on the southeast facing panel.
I see. And when you have it broken down on a tower into separate sectors, how many sectors would a tower potentially cover?
Usually cell towers and the cell companies set up for 3 sectors per tower.
And after that, it gives, there's some additional data contained in your record. Is that true?
Yes, sir, it is true.
And it indicates a lat and a lon. Can you tell us what that applies to?
I can. The latitude and longitude are the coordinates, the X and Y, if you will, coordinates for the cell tower itself.
And then just below that, there's additional information about regions, police, fire, and EMS. Can you tell us what that means?
I can't tell you what that means. In most cases, with wireless calls, it doesn't point to much. It tells us that the call was received in the ESN, the emergency service number zone, which is region 2. This part of the state is region 2. That zone has to do with how those calls are routed, whether it goes to which 911 center the calls go to.
I see. Okay. And now the bottom part of this document, it refers to sequence number 2. Can you just explain what that is?
I will. Sequence number 2 is the second set of data that has been presented to the 911 dispatcher. So whereas sequence 1 was the first piece of alley data that came in, sequence 2 was the second piece of alley data.
Okay. And noting on this, your record, this time it has WPH2. Is that wireless phase 2?
It is. WPH2 stands for wireless phase 2.
Okay. And describe how is that different than the first one, wireless phase 1?
Of course. Wireless phase 2 actually shows the location of the cell phone, and in most cases the location of the person who's holding that cell phone. Wireless phase 2 data provides a much closer location as to where the caller is actually located. Whereas phase 1 is the cell tower, phase 2 is where the caller is actually located.
How is that information used in the 911 system that you manage?
Wireless phase 2 data is extraordinarily important with the 911 system, both here and anywhere in the country. Because a regular 911 call is routed to a landline, it's a obviously by nature, and this information that comes with wireless phase 2 allows us to know the location of the caller who's requesting emergency assistance by dialing 911.
And as a result of learning, the person taking the call, what equipment do they have to assist them in identifying that location?
They have two pieces of equipment in front of them. They have a 911, I'll refer to it as a data screen. On that data screen, they receive the information, both the alley information, and essentially, if you look at the screen, sequence number 1 and everything going down to where it says region 2 EMS, that presents in a data format in front of the call taker, and at the same time in front of the call taker dispatcher, a map will populate, and the map will show what the longitude and latitude of either the cell tower or the cell caller, the phase 2 data, whichever one most recently has presented in front of that dispatcher.
I see. So just beyond, below now, almost near the bottom, there's additional latitude and longitude information. What does that pertain to?
There is, thank you. That's okay. That latitude and longitude information is the location of the caller, of the 911 caller, of the citizen who's dialed the phone.
And how do the dispatchers use that information?
The dispatchers use that information in conjunction with asking the caller where they are. They use the longitude and latitude to try to verify that information. In some circumstances, if the caller is unable to speak for whatever reason that might be, then there's some information that we can go on to have a sense as to where that 911 caller is located.
Now, the document that's been marked as number 15, the records, there's 2 other additional pages. Is that true?
Yes, sir, there is.
Okay, I'm just going to place the second page. Just generally describe the information that's contained on that document.
Of course. This is the document, as you can see, it says Magic Events. Magic is merely the name of the software that the company who provides the 911 equipment uses. This information sequentially documents the circumstances of the call. So the event type talks about the various things that happen within the 911 system and within the equipment. It time stamps that. As you look to the right, so the event type talks about what is happening with the call. The duration talks about the number of seconds and minutes that each of these various categories spent in those various areas. Moving further to the right, it says when each of these events started, and further to the right, when the event ended. The next column is the agent. That's the dispatcher who actually answered the 911 call. And the console talks about the position, the seat the 911 dispatcher was sitting in at any given time.
Okay, and essentially then page 2 and then page 3 are log entries during the course of the conversation.
They are, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
No questions, Ron.
You may sit down.
Thank you.
Your Honor, our next witness will be Shania Jenkins.
Man, you solemnly swear testimony about the case of this court, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. Have a seat.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
State your full name.
Shania Jenkins.
Can you spell your first name?
Shaneah.
And how about your last name?
Jenkins.
How old are you?
23.
And where did you grow up?
Bristol, Connecticut.
And do you have a family in Bristol?
Yes.
Who did you grow up with in Bristol?
My mother, sisters, grandparents, aunts, my whole
Okay.
family.
And what did, you referred to sisters. How many sisters do you have?
2.
And what are their names?
Cheyenne Jenkins and Ontavia Samuel.
Okay. And do you see one of your sisters present in the courtroom?
No.
Okay. Your sister, Shayana, how old is she?
25.
And so what is the age difference between the two of you?
About 2 years.
And she's your oldest sister?
Yes.
And where did you go to high school?
Bristol Central High School.
And did you graduate?
Yes.
Did your sister also go to that high school?
Yes.
And how many school years was she ahead of you?
2.
So, and when you started in high school, did you start as a freshman?
Yes.
She would have been a junior?
Correct.
Do you know at that time whether or not she was dating anybody?
I don't believe so.
Okay. At some point during the time she was in high school, did she begin to date somebody?
Yes.
Who did she begin to date?
Aaron Hernandez.
And Aaron Hernandez, you see, did you meet him at some point?
Yes.
How long ago did you meet him?
In high school sometime, I believe.
Okay. Did you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you just point to him and describe what he's wearing?
He's right there. He's wearing a black suit with looks like a bluish tie and a white shirt.
Your Honor, if the record can reflect the witness identifying the defendant. Now, How old were you when you first met him?
I'm not sure, sometime in high school, I believe.
Okay. And how long, if you know, did your sister date Aaron Hernandez in high school?
On and off, I think, for the last 2 years.
Okay. Now, after high school, did your sister go to college?
Yes.
Where did she go to college?
Tunxus Community College.
Okay. And what about Aaron Hernandez? Did he go to college?
Yes.
Where did he go?
Florida.
Okay. Now, after you graduated high school, that would have been 2 years later?
Correct.
Did you go to school?
I did.
Where did you go?
I started at Tunxus Community College.
Okay. And how long were you at Tunxus?
I believe about 2 years.
And then did you transfer somewhere else?
Yes.
Where did you transfer?
Central Connecticut State University.
Okay. And did you, what did you study there?
Criminology.
And did you graduate?
I did.
When did you graduate?
May of 2013.
Okay. Now, as you were attending college, were you working at all?
Yes.
And where were you working?
I had several jobs.
Okay. How many jobs did you have?
About 3.
Okay. And directing your attention to the year 2012, what 3 jobs were you working?
I worked at MR Home Care, Comfort Suites, and Bendette and McHugh.
Okay. What is MR Home Care?
It's working with the elderly.
And how would you spell that, just for the record?
M, the and sign, R, and then Home Care,
I see.
HOMECARE.
Okay. And the next job that you indicated, or strike that, did you work at a law firm?
Yes.
And what kind of work were you doing?
Paralegal work.
Okay. And when did you, working with elders and the law firm, what were your hours?
They varied. For the law firm, it was, I believe, 8 to 4, and then with the elderly, I just sporadically worked.
Okay. And in terms of courses you were taking, when were you attending class?
At night.
And did you also maintain a night job?
Yes.
And where was that?
Comfort Suites
And Comfort Suites, where was that located?
in Southington, Connecticut.
And what type of work were you doing for Comfort Suite?
The front desk associate.
Is that a hotel or?
Yes.
And how often were you working at the Comfort Suite Hotel?
I believe 3 times a week.
And what shifts were you working?
3 to 11 and 11 to 7.
Now, how long did you work there?
About 2 years.
And during the time that you were working essentially the evening shift or even then the overnight shift, is that right?
Correct.
Did you have an occasion to meet an individual by the name of Odin Lloyd?
Yes.
And how did you meet him?
He came to Connecticut to the hotel with his company that he was working for.
Okay, and what company was that?
Elecom.
Okay, and is it Elecom, E-L-E-C-O-M-M?
I believe there's 2 C's and maybe 2 M's.
Okay. And what kind of company was that? What kind of work were they doing?
Electrical work.
Okay. Do you know where they were working?
It varied.
Okay. And how, when you first met Odin Lloyd, how frequently would you see him?
A couple times a week when he was down, but he wasn't in Connecticut every week.
Okay. And so how, when you would see him, would there be other members of a crew that would be working and staying at the hotel?
Yes.
So when is the first time that you recall meeting him or seeing him?
As far as the date,
Yes.
maybe around January of 2012.
Okay. And over the next, and you've indicated you'd see him a couple times a week?
Correct.
And over the next, how long did that go on for, that you would see him coming to stay at the hotel to work in Connecticut?
A couple months.
And during that time frame, did you get to know him?
Yes.
And as a result of getting to know him, at some point, did the two of you begin to date?
Yes.
And when did you start dating?
Around March of 2012.
Okay. And when you started dating, where, how often would you see him after that?
Every week, a couple times a week.
Okay. And was that when he would be coming to Connecticut?
Both when he came to Connecticut and I came to Massachusetts as well.
Now, at some point after you began dating, and you've indicated that you'd come to Massachusetts, did you ever have an occasion to go to his home?
Yes.
And when you went to his home, did you meet any of his family members?
Yes.
Where did he live?
And 10 Fayston Street,
And what city or town is that located in?
Dorchester.
And did you, the family members you met, did you meet his mother?
Yes.
And did he have any siblings?
Yes.
Okay, and how many siblings did he have?
2 sisters.
Okay. Now, at some point, when you would get together, did you ever have an occasion to have Odin join, or strike that, your sister and Aaron in your company?
Yes.
And when was that first occasion that you had both your sister and the defendant in your company while you were with Odin?
On my birthday, August 9th,
August 9th of what year?
2012.
Okay. And you said it was on your birthday. Do you remember what you did on your birthday?
Went to a football game.
Okay. And after that football game, did you meet with your sister and the defendant?
I was already with my sister, but yes, we met the defendant.
Okay. And at that time, was there an introduction made between Odin and the defendant?
Yes.
Now, at the time that in August of 2012, where was your sister living?
In Plainville?
And was she living with anyone?
Yes.
Who was she living with?
Aaron.
And were they living, just describe the home they were living at that time.
It was like a condo townhouse.
Okay. And at some point at that time in August, do you know whether your sister was pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. And later on, was a child born?
Yes.
And when was that? November
6th.
Okay. Now, in November of 2012, or sometime after November 2012, after the birth, was that a baby girl?
Yes.
And after the baby was born, did your sister and the defendant move?
Yes.
Where did they move to?
To North Attleboro.
Okay. And when they moved to North Attleboro, just describe where they moved to.
They moved to a house.
And did you ever have occasions to visit that home?
Yes.
And how often after they had moved into that home would you visit?
It varied, but probably a couple times a month, maybe 2.
Okay. Now, were you still attending school?
Yes.
And what about working?
Yes.
Were you, the jobs that you referred to earlier, were you still employed by those, at those jobs?
I believe so. I might have only been employed by 2.
Okay. Now, during the occasions that you would come up to visit with your sister, would you also visit with Odin?
Yes.
And where would you get together?
I would pick him up from his house.
Okay. And when you picked him up from your house, did you had a vehicle?
Yes.
What kind of car?
Nissan Sentra.
And where would you go after picking him up?
Sometimes we would go to North Attleboro to visit my sister and Aaron.
Okay. And how frequently, when they had moved into North Attleboro, were you doing that with Odin?
Almost every time I went there, he was with me.
Okay. And over the next several months, how frequently would you see the defendant at the home?
Probably almost every time I was there.
Okay. Let me direct your attention to March of 2013. Do you recall where the defendant was during that month?
In California.
Okay. And do you know why he was in California?
It was the off season, so they went to California.
And when you say they went to California, who else went with them?
My sister and my niece.
And do you know where they were staying?
I visited there, but I don't remember.
Okay. When you say you visited there, approximately when did you visit?
The end of March.
And when you went out at the end of March, did anyone go with you?
Yes.
Who was that?
One of my sister's friends and her boyfriend.
Okay. And did you accompany them as well?
Yes.
And what about Odin?
No.
Was he invited to attend?
No.
Okay. What was his relationship with the defendant at that time?
At that time, I don't know that they really had one. It was just whenever they were around each other, they were cordial and fine.
Okay. Now, how long was your sister and the defendant in California?
Couple months, I believe.
Okay. And do you recall when they returned?
She returned in April, I want to say, and I believe he returned before her birthday, so sometime in May, maybe, late April.
Okay. Now, May 17th of 2013, does that day have any significance to you?
Yes,
And what day was that?
the day I graduated.
Okay. And when you graduated, did your family members attend?
Yes,
And did that include your sister, Shayana?
it did, yes.
And what about Odin?
Yes,
What about the defendant?
no.
Okay. So when is the next time you remember after you had gone to California and the defendant had returned from California, that Odin and the defendant would have even had an occasion to see each other?
From what I can recall, I think it was my sister's birthday party,
And when was that?
the beginning of June,
When is her actual birthday?
the 29th of May.
Okay. And is that right around Memorial Weekend?
Yes,
And do you know whether it was actually celebrated on her birthday or sometime thereafter?
it was not on her birthday, it was after.
Okay. Do you know how long after?
The weekend after, I believe.
Okay. And when you say there was a celebration of her birthday, where was that?
At their house.
And who else attended?
Some of her friends, family, and I think a couple of Aaron's football friends.
Okay. So how many people in total would you estimate attended that?
Maybe 25 or 30.
Okay. And Odin was one of the persons who also attended?
Yes,
And that would have been, do you recall that being sometime in either the end of May or the beginning of June?
beginning of June.
Okay. And after that occasion, do you recall the next occasion that Odin and the defendant would have been together?
The weekend after that.
Okay. And where were they together on that?
At my
Or how
sister
were they
and Aaron's
together?
house.
Okay. And again, they were together on that occasion. Who else was present?
Just me, my sister, and the baby, I believe.
And do you know of any occasion where the two of them ever were getting together in your absence, meaning not involving you and your sister?
Just the one that I was made aware of the weekend that he was murdered.
Okay, when you say you were made aware, you don't have, you weren't present, obviously.
Correct.
Okay. So, in terms of their acquaintance or being friendly, how would you describe that at the time? You said at some point now Odin Lloyd was murdered?
Correct.
And what date was that?
The 17th of June.
Okay. Prior to that date, how would you have described their relationship?
Like beginning stages of a friendship. From what I'm aware of, they were only really around each other and communicated when I was there. Me and my sister were present.
Okay. Do you know whether they talked on the phone?
Not that I'm
communicated
aware.
the phone? Were you ever present when phone calls were made between Odin and you could hear the defendant's voice?
Not that I can recall now.
Okay. to show you two photographs. Do you recognize what's depicted in this first photograph?
Yes.
And what is that?
Odin?
Okay. And is he wearing something?
Yes.
And what is that?
A hat?
Did you know him to wear a hat?
Yes.
And what type of hat would he wear?
A Kango hat?
I'm sorry,
Kango hat?
Kango, do you know how to spell that?
Kangoo, I believe?
Okay. In the second photograph I'm going to show you, do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes.
And what is that?
North Hattleboro home, where my sister and Aaron lived.
And do you know what the address was?
22 Ronald C. Meyer Drive, I believe.
Okay. Your Honor, I would, both of these fairly accurately portray Odin in this in the house as well as this.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'll just...
They may be marked as the next two exhibits.
Exhibit 16 and 17.
Proposition.
No.
So ma'am, I'm putting just to your left, you can see on that screen, it's now been marked as number 16. That the photograph I just showed you.
Yes.
And is he wearing a hat that you described as a Kango?
Yes.
And now, excuse me, putting number 17 on the screen. Is that the photograph that I just showed you?
Yes.
And what does this depict?
Aaron and my sister's home.
Now, in terms of your relationship with Odin, how long did you date?
From March of 2012, so about a year and a half, maybe.
And after you had graduated from college, you graduated with what kind of degree?
Bachelor's in criminology.
And did you have plans?
Yes.
And what were your plans?
To attend law school in Boston.
And had you taken any steps to further your plans to attend law school in Boston?
Yes.
And what were those?
I was accepted into New England law in Boston.
Okay. And with regard to plans, what were your plans in terms of where you were going to live?
I was looking into moving to Massachusetts.
Okay. And was anybody else involved in those plans?
Yes.
Who was that?
Odin.
Now, after Odin's death, did you continue with your plan to go to law school?
Yes.
Where are you currently going to school?
New England law in Boston.
And what year are you in at this time?
Second year.
And your area of study you're interested in?
Criminal law.
Now, with regard to the relationship between the defendant and Odin Lloyd, do you know, did you know anything about marijuana?
Yes.
And when did you first learn, did Odin Lloyd smoke marijuana?
Yes.
And were there occasions where when you went to visit him, the house at Ronald C. Meyer, that he would go to an area of the house?
Yes.
Would somebody invite him to that area of the house?
I don't know if there was a formal invitation, but yes.
Okay, well, who would he go to that area of the house with?
Aaron.
Okay, and where was that area of the house?
In the basement.
And do you know, when they would go to the basement, do you know what they would do?
Hang out and smoke.
Okay, when you say hang out and smoke, how did you know that?
You can smell it.
Okay. Were there other occasions where you actually saw them smoking together?
A few.
Okay, and where would they smoke when you were able to see them?
Either outside or when we were together in other places.
Okay. And in terms of, do you know where the marijuana was coming from?
Either Odin or Aaron.
Okay. Were there ever occasions that when you went to pick up Odin, that after picking him up you would go somewhere?
Yes.
And where would you go?
To go pick up marijuana.
Okay. And how far or how close or far was that from Odin's home?
Maybe 2 minutes.
Okay. And when he would go there, would he go into or meet with somebody?
Yes.
And then after that, would he come back to the car?
Yes.
And where would you go?
We would go to North Attleboro.
Okay. And when did you know? Did Odin ever roll joints in your presence?
Yes.
Okay. And just describe how he would roll joints.
They were in some type of white paper, and they were kind of thick at the bottom, and they got smaller going up to the top.
Okay. And just in terms of how did he roll them? Do you know, as he rolled them, did he do anything with the paper?
I think he licked it, but I'm not really sure.
Okay. And how many, do you know how many joints he would roll at any given time?
Normally it was just the one he was about to smoke at that time.
Okay. Now at that time, was he still working for Electcom?
No.
Where was he working?
All Green Fertilizer Company.
Okay. And how long had he been working there, if you know?
Very short period of time, maybe a couple months.
Now when you indicate at some point when you would see him rolling, he would roll just one joint?
Correct.
Did you ever know him to have more than that in terms of a quantity of joints?
Normally no, but there was one occasion, yes.
Okay, and when was that occasion?
He showed me a picture of a bunch of them rolled up and stacked on his phone.
Okay. And when was that in relation to his death?
Right before sometime.
Okay. You're on a man approach.
Me.
I'm just going to show you this photograph and ask you if you recognize it.
Yes.
And what do you recognize this to be?
The marijuana that he rolled up and stacked.
Okay. And when you indicated at some point he had showed you this, a photo of this?
Correct.
And how was it that he showed you a photo?
I believe he just showed it to me on his phone.
Is this in substantially the same condition in terms of the picture that it was when he showed it to you?
Yes.
Your Honor, I don't think this is the next exhibit.
No objection. Been marked as the next exhibit.
Yeah, put this on your way. And I'm going to put on the screen here what's now marked as Exhibit 18. Is that a picture? Is that a picture that you had seen before on Odin's phone?
Yes.
And you indicated he had shown that to you, and it was sometime close in time to death. Can you give us an estimation of that time?
I'm not really sure.
Now, the items that you described in terms of how he rolled the joints, is that consistent or inconsistent with what is depicted in this photograph?
They look normal.
Okay. And with regard to what's underneath them, what they're on, do you recognize that?
Not from that picture, no.
Okay. Had you ever been, you indicated that there were occasions when Bowden was at the home of the defendant, that they would go to the basement?
Yes,
Have you ever gone to the basement?
yes,
On how many occasions?
multiple occasions.
Okay. And can you just describe what's in that basement area?
It was Aaron's man cave. It had a pool table, TV, bar, bedroom, bathroom, a room where they had some fitness equipment, and then there was a theater room.
Okay. And was there a bar down in that area?
Yes.
Okay, and what, do you recall what the bar, how it appeared, or what color it was?
Not off the top of my head.
You may.
Just going to show you 3 photographs and ask you to take a look at them. This first one, do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
Yes.
And what is that?
The bar in the basement.
Okay. Next photograph,
Yes.
what do you see here?
It's the man cave with the pool table, the TV, and the couch.
Okay. And where's the bar in relation to the pool table?
To the left.
And lastly, this photograph.
It's the bar.
These photos fairly accurately portray that room, that area in the basement, as you recall.
Yes.
On and off of these is the next exhibit. No objection.
It marks the next exhibit.
Publish this time around.
You may.
Ma'am, I'm putting 19A on the overhead. Does that depict that area of the bar?
Yes.
And 2 minutes ago, I had asked you about the bar surface. Is that the condition of the bar when you had visited the home of the defendant?
Yes.
And in terms of its color, how would you describe that?
It's like a dark wood color.
Is there anything different about that color than the exhibit I had showed you before? Exhibit number 18.
No.
And I'm placing 19B. What does this show?
The basement.
Okay, you indicate there's a pool table there, and the bar at this location is where?
To the left of the pool table.
Okay, over in here.
Yes.
And you described a movie theater.
Yes.
Where is that located?
Right where that open door is, to the right of the pool table.
Okay, and if you just point to that, and I'll just track here. So over in here?
Correct.
Okay. And had you ever gone into the movie or theater area?
Yes.
And just describe that area for us.
I believe there's a dark blue paint. There's big movie theater chairs, big screen. I think there's a popcorn machine in there.
Okay, was there certain equipment that was used then to show movies and things?
Yes.
And where was that located?
Behind the screen.
Okay, when you say behind the screen, how large a screen was this?
It was a big screen. It took up the whole wall.
Okay. And how many pieces of equipment, electronics equipment, were behind that screen?
I'm not sure, a few, I believe.
Now I'm placing 19C. What is this? Excuse me, what does this depict?
The bar.
Were you familiar with other areas of the home?
Yes.
When you came up to visit, would you stay at the home?
Yes.
Excuse me. Mayor, Your Honor. Ma'am, approximately how many times have you been to your sister and the defendant's home?
A lot.
Okay. And just if you could describe for us, when you would come to the house, how would you enter the home?
Normally through the garage.
Okay. And when you say normally through the garage, how many bays of the garage were there at the house?
3.
And did to enter through the garage, did you have to have either a key or some passcode?
A code.
Okay. Were you aware of that passcode?
No.
So when you would enter through the garage, how would you gain access?
My sister.
Okay. And would you first call if you were outside?
For the most part, yes.
Okay. Was there a bell of some sort that you could ring, or?
At the front door, yes.
Okay. So when you would come to the side, you'd call her?
Yes.
The door would be open, you could enter?
Correct.
And when you came into the garage there, just describe how would you now get into the house?
There were a set of stairs that brought you to like a small foyer area that you could enter the kitchen through.
Okay. And while, just with regard to when you would enter into the garage, did you ever have occasion to see any vehicles in the garage?
Yes.
Okay, and what kind of vehicles would you see?
My sister's, and then there was another vehicle in one of the bays. It was an older vehicle that just sat there.
Okay. And when you say your sister's vehicle, what kind of car was she driving at that time?
A white Audi.
And what style of vehicle was that?
An SUV.
Okay. And this other car, can you tell us what kind of car that was?
It looked like an older vehicle, kind of goldish, maybe. That's really all I can recall.
What was its condition?
It just looked old. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Do you know who made the vehicle, you know, the manufacturer of it?
Maybe Toyota.
Okay. And what color was it?
Kind of goldish, brownish.
Okay. Do you know whether it had any license plate on it?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you ever see anybody using that car?
No.
When do you recall first seeing that car in the garage?
I don't recall.
Okay. And on how many occasions had you gone to the home prior to Odin's death and observed that car there?
A few. I'm not really sure how many.
Had you ever seen that car move, meaning on one occasion see it somewhere, and then on another occasion when you returned, seeing it in a different place?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Excuse me. After you would enter in the garage, you said there were a couple of stairs,
Yes.
and then you would go through a door.
Yes.
Where would that take you in the home?
Into a small foyer area, which would lead you, either you could go upstairs to where they had the playroom, or you can come into the kitchen.
Okay. So if you went to the playroom, was that on the first floor or the second floor?
Second.
Okay. And what area of the home was that above?
The garage.
Okay. And if you went, instead of going to the second floor, to the playroom, if you stayed on the first floor, where would you now find yourself?
The kitchen.
And if you made, when you're in the kitchen, are there any windows?
Yes.
And where do they, if you looked out those windows, what part of the property would you see?
The backyard.
And in the backyard, was there was that fenced or unfenced?
Fenced.
And was there a pool somewhere out in that backyard?
Yes.
And also, was there any other structure out in the back near the pool?
A pool house, yes.
Okay. Now, once in the kitchen, let me ask you this. In the kitchen, were there any devices on the walls?
Yes.
And what type of device was on the wall?
There was something on the wall where you could play music, I believe, control the security system, and maybe do a couple other things.
Okay. And when you say there was a device that you could control the security system, did you know that they had a security system in the home?
Yes.
And were you able to see certain things on or attached or in and around the home that related to that security system?
Yes,
And what were those items?
you can see cameras.
Okay, and approximately how many cameras could you see?
A few. One in the living room, one in the foyer area in the front. I think that's it for the first floor. That's all I'm aware of on the first floor.
Okay, and you're talking about cameras that are inside or outside?
Inside.
Okay. Were there other cameras that you're aware of on the outside of the home?
Yes.
Okay, and just describe those if you would.
One near the garage, and I believe there's two in the front, and one near the porch in the back.
Okay. And what areas of the house did those cameras cover on the outside?
The one on the porch covered the backyard, the one near the garage covered that area, and then the two in the front, I believe they rotated, so the whole front of the house.
I see. When you say they rotated, what do you mean by that?
I believe the cameras actually moved inside the little ball they were in.
Okay, and how would they rotate or move inside the ball?
I'm not sure. I guess you would control them from somewhere.
Okay, when you say they could be controlled from somewhere, were there other areas in the home that they had control panels?
The only two I'm aware of, other than the big control panel in the basement, was one in the master bedroom and then the one in the kitchen.
Okay, so one in the master bedroom, one in the kitchen, and then you said the big one in the basement.
Just where all the equipment was.
I see. And, okay, and with regard to the cameras now, do you know if there was a camera in the basement?
Yes.
Okay, and that area, I had just shown you some photographs of the basement area. What rooms or areas did that camera cover?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And these cameras that you would see around the home, how were they located? Were they on a ceiling or on a wall?
On the ceiling.
Okay. And with regard to the, after now, if you move from the kitchen area, did you have a choice of going to different locations from the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay, where could you go?
You could go to the sunroom. You could go back out to the garage, out to the back area. You can go, there's a little hallway area where you can go into the pantry or go into the dining room, and then you can also go into the living room.
Okay. And how many garages, in terms of where you could park vehicles, how many garages were there?
3.
Okay. And were they all together or were they separated?
They were all in the same vicinity, but 2 were grouped together, and then another one was on the side.
Okay. And where you had described this vehicle in one of the garages, was that in the separate one or was that in the 2-car garage?
The 2.
Okay. And where you would see your sister park her car in the garage, which one was that?
In the 2.
Okay. Do you know whether cars would be parked in the 1-car garage? Did you ever see any parked in that area?
Just when we came to visit, we would park there sometimes.
Okay. Now, from the kitchen, you indicated you could go to a porch area?
Yes.
And that porch area, what side of the house was that located on?
The back of the house.
And if you went now away from that area in the kitchen, what area of the home could you access?
What do you mean?
What would be the room that's now adjacent to the kitchen? Like if you moved out of the kitchen, moving away from the porch, so heading in that direction, where would you find it?
Outside or inside?
I beg your pardon, inside.
The sunroom?
Okay. So, do you know where the dining area is in the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay, and when you're referring to the sunroom, if you're looking out the window, would that be to the left or the right?
To the right.
Okay. Is there another room if you went to the left?
On the inside? No, I mean...
Well, let me ask you this. Is there a living room in the home?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you access the living room?
Through the kitchen.
Okay. And is there a dining room in the home?
Yes,
And where is that located?
the formal or informal.
Well, let's start with the formal. Where's the formal dining room?
To the left of the kitchen.
Okay. And how about the informal dining?
Basically right off of the kitchen. It's in the kitchen area.
I see. Okay. And did the home have a foyer?
Yes,
And where was the foyer?
the front of the home.
And you'd indicated sometimes you would come through the front.
Rarely, yes.
Okay. And when you came through the front, or as you approached the front door, and I had showed you that picture before, that would depict where the front door is.
Yes,
And you indicated there were some cameras in
Yes.
that area. Where were they located?
right on the porch, on the top, the ceiling part.
And if you came in the home now, you would find yourself in the foyer.
Correct.
Now, what if you went to the left? Where would you go?
You had a choice of going up the stairs or their formal living room.
Okay. Now, when you came in the foyer, was there a camera in that area?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And where was that located generally?
On the ceiling.
And if you then moved into the living room, was there a camera there?
Yes,
And where was that located?
on the ceiling.
Okay. And was there an office in the home?
Yes,
Was that in the back of the far corner of the house?
yes.
Could I see counsel again? It's a minute or two before 1, so we're going to recess at this time. Let me remind you to please keep your mind suspended, not to talk about the case or Mr. Hernandez amongst yourselves as you leave today or when you come in next week, not to do any research about the case or Mr. Hernandez, and to avoid anything that there could be in any media or social media, Facebook, anywhere, about this case or Mr. Hernandez. I am not going to forbid you from watching the Super Bowl game on Sunday if that's something that's really important to you. But I am going to ask you to be especially vigilant. If you're watching the game with friends or family or at any sort of party, just have your antennae, you just be really, really vigilant. You have to avoid anything that has anything to do with this case or Mr. Hernandez. If you hear that word, you gotta walk out of the room, distance yourself, immediately stop people, and if his name or this case is mentioned on a television screen or computer, if you're watching it on a computer or anything, just walk away. It's vitally important. You know how long it took us to get a group of 18 fair and impartial jurors, and it's very, very important that you avoid being exposed to any outside influences. As I've told you before, that just would not be fair to anyone involved in this case. So please, if you feel you must watch the game and take every precaution to avoid being exposed to any outside influence about this case or about Mr. Hernandez. And lastly, during the break, I was told that there's a prediction of another 6 to 10 inches of snow on Monday. That may not happen, but if it does, again, we will, there's that number that you have to call, and in addition, we will attempt to, if the case is either going to be postponed for a day or a late start, we will one of the court officers will be contacting each of you by telephone early in the morning. So please make sure that we have your accurate home numbers, your cell phone numbers, that they've received them, and that we have them all, because those calls will be made first thing Monday morning. But hopefully we will see you on Monday morning, and the snow won't be as bad or won't happen at all, and wish you a good weekend. Thank you.
All rise.